Today we begin an exploration of one of medieval Europe's most iconic figures, Charlemagne, or Charles the Great. As the king of the Franks and later the Holy Roman Emperor, Charlemagne was a towering presence in European history, uniting vast territories under his rule and laying the foundations for what would become modern Europe. Born in a time of chaos and fragmentation, Charlemagne rose to power through determination, military prowess, and an unparalleled vision for governance. His reign not only expanded the Frankish kingdom, but also revitalized culture, learning, and religious devotion across the continent. Known as the Father of Europe, he was a ruler who transformed the medieval world, blending tradition and innovation to forge an enduring legacy. In this series, we'll delve into the life and achievements of Charlemagne, from his early years to his military conquests, and from his crowning as Holy Roman Emperor to the lasting influence of his rule. Together, let us uncover the story of a man whose impact shaped the course of European history and whose legacy still resonates today. The early years, shaping a future. King Charlemagne, or Charles the Great, was born in 742 CE into a world of uncertainty and fragmentation. Europe was still reeling from the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, with rival kingdoms vying for dominance. Amid this turmoil, Charlemagne's birth marked the beginning of a life that would bring remarkable unity and transformation to the continent. His early years were shaped by the ambitions of his family, the challenges of his time, and the qualities he would later use to carve out a legacy as one of history's most influential rulers. Charlemagne was the eldest son of Pepin the Short and Bertrada of Leon. Pepin, who became the first Carolingian king, had seized power from the declining Merovingian dynasty, strengthening his rule with the church's support. This alliance between the Carolingians and the papacy became a cornerstone of Charlemagne's rise, intertwining religion and politics in a way that would define his reign. From an early age, Charlemagne was immersed in the responsibilities of leadership, observing his father's efforts to consolidate power and expand the Frankish kingdom. Details of Charlemagne's early education remain sparse, but as the son of a king, he likely received training befitting a future ruler. His education emphasized practical skills over scholarly pursuits, focusing on horseback riding, swordsmanship, and military strategy. Nevertheless, he developed a deep appreciation for learning, a passion that would later drive his efforts to revive education and culture throughout his realm. Charlemagne's exposure to Latin and Christian teachings also prepared him for the complex religious and administrative duties that lay ahead. The Frankish kingdom into which Charlemagne was born was vast but fragile, surrounded by external threats and plagued by internal rivalries. Upon Pepin's death in 768, the kingdom was divided between Charlemagne and his younger brother, Carloman, as was customary in Frankish tradition. Charlemagne ruled the western and northern regions, while Carloman governed the east. However, their relationship was fraught with tension, marked by conflicting ambitions and distrust. This division of power threatened the unity of the Frankish kingdom, but fate intervened in 771 when Carloman died suddenly. The cause of his death remains uncertain, and while some contemporaries speculated about foul play, There is no definitive evidence linking Charlemagne to his brother's demise. Regardless, Carloman's death allowed Charlemagne to consolidate power and assume sole control of the kingdom. This moment marked a turning point in his life, freeing him to pursue his vision of a unified and powerful Frankish state. Charlemagne quickly demonstrated his abilities as a ruler, embarking on campaigns to secure and expand his territories. One of his first major challenges came from the Lombards, a powerful kingdom in northern Italy that posed a threat to the papacy. In 774, Charlemagne led a successful campaign against the Lombards, capturing their capital at Pavia and declaring himself king of the Lombards. This victory not only solidified his alliance with the church, but also marked the beginning of his reputation as a formidable military leader. The partnership between Charlemagne and the church was a defining feature of his rule. Building on the sea, foundation laid by his father, Charlemagne worked closely with the papacy to strengthen Christian unity across his kingdom. He supported missionary efforts to convert pagan tribes, particularly in regions like Saxony, where resistance to Christianity was strong. For Charlemagne, the spread of Christianity was not only a spiritual mission, but also a means of consolidating political control, as shared faith helped bind his diverse subjects together. Charlemagne's governance during these early years laid the groundwork for his later achievements. He relied on a network of loyal nobles and clergy to administer his vast territories, rewarding them with land and titles in exchange for their service. This system of governance, though still developing, reflected his ability to balance central authority with local autonomy, a strategy that would prove essential in maintaining control over his expanding empire. While Charlemagne's early reign was marked by military and political successes, it also revealed the qualities that would define his leadership: strategic brilliance, relentless ambition, and a deep sense of responsibility toward his people. These years of consolidation and growth were crucial in shaping him into a ruler capable of uniting Europe under a single banner. Charlemagne's journey was just beginning. The lessons he learned during his early years, from the challenges of shared rule to the importance of strong alliances, would guide him as he embarked on the next phase of his reign: the expansion of his empire and the creation of a legacy that would endure for centuries. Consolidating power. Uniting the Frankish kingdom, Charlemagne's consolidation of power was a defining phase of his reign, marking the transformation of a divided kingdom into a united and formidable realm. Upon the death of his brother Carloman in 771, Charlemagne assumed sole control of the Frankish kingdom. This unification laid the foundation for his later achievements, but it also presented significant challenges, from internal dissent to external threats. Charlemagne's response to these challenges showcased his skill as both a ruler and a military strategist, enabling him to strengthen his authority and set the stage for the expansion of his empire. The Frankish kingdom that Charlemagne inherited was vast but fragmented, with diverse regions governed by local nobles. To consolidate his rule, Charlemagne relied on a combination of military campaigns, strategic alliances, and administrative reforms. One of his first priorities was to secure the loyalty of his vassals. Nobles who had previously aligned with Carloman were brought under his control, either through diplomacy or displays of military strength. In doing so, Charlemagne ensured that the kingdom's internal structure was stable enough to withstand external pressures. Charlemagne's military campaigns were crucial to his efforts at unification. Between 772 and 804, he waged a series of wars against the Saxons, a pagan tribe that inhabited the northeastern frontier of the Frankish kingdom. These campaigns were among the longest and most grueling of Charlemagne's reign, involving repeated clashes as the Saxons resisted both conquest and conversion to Christianity. Charlemagne's approach was relentless. He combined military force with efforts to impose Christianity on the Saxons, believing that religious unity was essential for political stability. The campaign culminated in the forced baptism of thousands of Saxons and the establishment of Frankish rule over their territory. The conquest of Lombardy in 794 further demonstrated Charlemagne's ability to consolidate power. The Lombards, who controlled northern Italy, had long been a threat to the papacy. At the request of Pope Adrian I, Charlemagne led his forces across the Alps and defeated the Lombards decisively, capturing their capital at Pavia. He declared himself king of the Lombards, a rare instance of a ruler holding two crowns simultaneously. This victory not only expanded Charlemagne's domain, but also strengthened his alliance with the Church, solidifying his role as a defender of Christendom. Charlemagne's alliance with the Church was central to his consolidation of power. Some mutual benefits of this partnership were clear. The Church provided Charlemagne with moral legitimacy, while he offered protection and support for the spread of Christianity. Through this relationship, Charlemagne promoted religious reforms, standardizing practices and enforcing orthodoxy across his kingdom. This alignment of spiritual and temporal authority reinforced his position as a unifying figure in a fragmented Europe. To govern his expanding kingdom effectively, Charlemagne implemented administrative reforms that laid the groundwork for a centralized state. He appointed royal agents known as missi dominici, or envoys of the Lord, to oversee local officials, enforce royal decrees, and ensure the fair administration of justice. These envoys, often paired as one noble and one clergyman, traveled throughout the realm, acting as the king's eyes and ears. Their work helped maintain order and curbed the potential for corruption among local rulers. Charlemagne also emphasized the importance of law and order. He codified existing laws and issued new capitularies, or royal directives, to address issues ranging from military obligations to moral conduct. These efforts reflected his vision of a unified kingdom, governed by clear and consistent rules, with the king serving as the ultimate authority. Charlemagne's consolidation of power was not without its challenges. Resistance from local rulers, cultural differences among his subjects, and the logistical difficulties of managing such a large territory tested his leadership. Yet his ability to navigate these complexities was a testament to his skill as a ruler. He combined military strength with diplomatic acumen, earning the loyalty of his vassals and the respect of his allies. By the end of this phase of his reign, Charlemagne had transformed the Frankish kingdom into a cohesive and centralized state. His His successes in unifying his realm paved the way for the next chapter of his story, the expansion of his empire and his crowning as Holy Roman Emperor. This consolidation of power not only secured Charlemagne's legacy, but also laid the foundations for the political and cultural development of medieval Europe. Military campaigns, expanding the empire. Charlemagne's reign was defined by his relentless military campaigns, which expanded the Frankish kingdom into one of the largest empires in medieval Europe. These conquests were not driven solely by territorial ambition. They were deeply tied to Charlemagne's vision of unifying Europe under Christian rule. Through a combination of strategic brilliance and unwavering determination, Charlemagne transformed the Frankish kingdom into an empire that spanned much of Western and Central Europe. One of Charlemagne's earliest and most enduring conflicts was against the Saxons, a pagan people inhabiting the regions of modern-day Germany. The Saxon Wars began in 772 and lasted for over 3 decades, involving numerous battles, revolts, and retaliatory campaigns. For Charlemagne, the Saxons represented both a military and a spiritual challenge. Their resistance to Frankish authority was compounded by their refusal to convert to Christianity, which Charlemagne viewed as essential for unifying his empire. Charlemagne's strategy against the Saxons was multifaceted. He used overwhelming force to subdue their armies, destroyed their sacred sites, such as the Irminsul, and established a network of fortified towns to secure conquered territories. Yet his efforts went beyond warfare. Charlemagne imposed Christian practices on the Saxons, enforcing mass baptisms and integrating them into the Frankish administrative system. The capitulation of the Saxons in 804 marked the end of one of Charlemagne's most grueling campaigns and solidified his rule over a significant portion of northern Europe. In addition to the Saxon wars, Charlemagne turned his attention to the Aesi, Lombards in Italy. The Lombards had long been a threat to the papacy, and in 774, at the request of Pope Adrian III, Charlemagne led his army across the Alps. The campaign culminated in the siege and capture of Pavia, the Lombard capital, and the deposition of King Desiderius. Charlemagne declared himself King of the Lombards, a title unprecedented for a Frankish ruler. This conquest not only expanded Charlemagne's territory into northern Italy, but also reinforced his alliance with the Church, strengthening his position as a defender of Christendom. Charlemagne also conducted campaigns against the Avars, a nomadic group that had established a powerful khaganate in Central Europe. Between 791 and 803, his forces systematically dismantled the Avar strongholds, seizing vast treasures and incorporating their lands into the Frankish Empire. The defeat of the Avars eliminated a significant threat to the eastern borders of Charlemagne's realm and demonstrated his ability to project power far beyond the traditional boundaries of the Frankish kingdom. The Iberian Peninsula became another theater of Charlemagne's military ambitions. In 778, he led an expedition to aid Muslim leaders in northern Spain, who were rebelling against the ruling Umayyad Emirate. Although this campaign ultimately failed to achieve its objectives, it is remembered for the legendary Battle of Roncevaux Pass, where Charlemagne's rearguard was ambushed by Basque forces. This event inspired the epic Song of Roland, immortalizing Charlemagne and his knights in medieval literature. Charlemagne's military successes were not solely due to his personal leadership, but also to the structure and discipline of the Frankish army. His forces were composed of heavily armored cavalry, supported by infantry and siege engineers. Charlemagne relied on the obligation of service, requiring vassals to provide troops for his campaigns. This system ensured a steady supply of manpower, while his logistical organization enabled his armies to sustain long campaigns across vast distances. Despite the brutality of his campaigns, Charlemagne often sought to integrate conquered peoples into his empire, rather than merely subjugating them. He established laws, promoted Christian practices, and encouraged economic development in newly acquired territories. This approach helped to stabilize his empire and fostered a sense of unity among its diverse inhabitants. By the end of Charlemagne's reign, his empire stretched from the Pyrenees to the Elbe River and from the North Sea to central Italy. His conquests not only expanded the Frankish kingdom, but also laid the groundwork for the eventual creation of the Holy Roman Empire. Through his military campaigns, Charlemagne reshaped the political and cultural map of Europe, forging an empire that would influence the course of history for centuries to come. The coronation of an emperor, the birth of the Holy Roman Empire. The crowning of Charlemagne as Holy Roman Emperor on Christmas Day in the year 800 was one of the most pivotal moments in European history. This event symbolized the fusion of Roman, Germanic, and Christian traditions, establishing a new political order that would endure for centuries. It was both a culmination of Charlemagne's achievements and the beginning of his legacy as a unifier of medieval Europe. The circumstances leading to Charlemagne's coronation were deeply rooted in his alliance with the Church. The papacy, under Pope Leo III, had grown increasingly reliant on Frankish protection as it faced threats from internal factions and external enemies. Charlemagne's conquests, particularly his victory over the Lombards, had solidified his reputation as a defender of Christendom. By the late 8th century, the Frankish king was seen as the most powerful ruler in Western Europe, making him an ideal candidate for the Church's support. The immediate catalyst for Charlemagne's coronation came in 799, when Pope Leo III was attacked by political rivals in Rome. Accused of corruption and facing deposition, Leo fled to Charlemagne's court, seeking protection. Charlemagne, recognizing both the political and spiritual significance of the situation, escorted the Pope back to Rome and presided over a synod that cleared Leo of the charges. This act of intervention showcased Charlemagne's authority not only as a military leader, but also as a protector of the Church's moral and institutional integrity. On Christmas Day in 800, during a solemn mass at St. Peter's Basilica, Pope Leo III placed a crown on Charlemagne's head, proclaiming him Emperor of the Romans. This title was steeped in historical significance, evoking the grandeur of the ancient Roman Empire, while emphasizing Charlemagne's role as a unifier and ruler of a renewed Christian Europe. According to some accounts, Charlemagne was surprised by the coronation and had not sought the title, though others suggest that he may have been complicit in the carefully orchestrated ceremony. The coronation had profound implications for both Charlemagne and the papacy. For Charlemagne, it elevated his status from king to emperor, granting him a level of authority and legitimacy unmatched by his contemporaries. He now claimed to be the successor of the Roman emperors, wielding both temporal and spiritual power over much of Western Christendom. This new title reinforced his role as a unifier of Europe and a champion of Christian values, lending divine sanction to his rule. For the papacy, crowning Charlemagne was a strategic move to assert its authority over secular rulers. By performing the coronation, Pope Leo III symbolically positioned the Church as the source of imperial legitimacy. This act established a precedent for future European rulers, reinforcing the idea that the Church held the ultimate power to grant and withdraw divine favor. However, this arrangement also sowed the seeds of future conflict, as tensions between emperors and popes over their respective roles would shape European politics for centuries. The creation of the Holy Roman Empire marked a turning point in European history. It provided a model of centralized authority in a fragmented continent, blending the legacy of the Roman Empire with the cultural and religious traditions of the Germanic peoples. Charlemagne's empire became a symbol of unity and order, inspiring future rulers to emulate his vision of governance. In practical terms, the title of emperor enabled Charlemagne to strengthen his control over his vast territories. It allowed him to negotiate with the Byzantine Empire, which still claimed to be the sole successor of Rome, and to assert his dominance over neighboring Christian kingdoms. It also underscored his role as a protector of the Church, reinforcing his alliance with the papacy and supporting his efforts to spread Christianity throughout Europe. Despite its grandeur, Charlemagne's coronation also exposed the fragility of his empire. The diversity of cultures, languages, and traditions within his realm posed ongoing challenges to unity. Charlemagne's ability to maintain control depended on his personal leadership and the loyalty of his vassals. After his death, the empire would struggle to remain cohesive, eventually fragmenting into separate kingdoms. Nevertheless, the coronation of Charlemagne as Holy Roman Emperor was a moment of immense significance. It reflected the aspirations of a medieval Europe, striving for unity and order, while also laying the foundations for the political and religious dynamics that would shape the continent for centuries. For Charlemagne, it was the crowning achievement of a reign that blended ambition, faith, and vision into a legacy that continues to inspire. The coronation of an emperor, the birth of the Holy Roman Empire. The crowning of Charlemagne as Holy Roman Emperor on Christmas Day in the year 800 was one of the most pivotal moments in European history. This event symbolized the fusion of Roman, Germanic, and Christian traditions, establishing a new political order that would endure for centuries. It was both a culmination of Charlemagne's achievements and the beginning of his legacy as a unifier of medieval Europe. The circumstances leading to Charlemagne's coronation were deeply rooted in his alliance with the Church. The papacy, under Pope Leo III, had grown increasingly reliant on Frankish protection as it faced threats from internal factions and external enemies. Charlemagne's conquests, particularly his victory over the Lombards, had solidified his reputation as a defender of Christendom. By the late 8th century, the Frankish king was seen as the most powerful ruler in Western Europe, making him an ideal candidate for the Church's support. The immediate catalyst for Charlemagne's coronation came in 799, when Pope Leo III was attacked by political rivals in Rome, accused of corruption and facing deposition. Leo fled to Charlemagne's court, seeking protection. Charlemagne, recognizing both the political and spiritual significance of the situation, escorted the Pope back to Rome and presided over a synod that cleared Leo of the charges. This act of intervention showcased Charlemagne's authority not only as a military leader, but also as a protector of the Church's moral and institutional integrity. On Christmas Day in 800, during a solemn Mass at St. Peter's Basilica, Pope Leo III placed a crown on Charlemagne's head, proclaiming him Emperor of the Romans. This title was steeped in historical significance, evoking the grandeur of the ancient Roman Empire, while emphasizing Charlemagne's role as a unifier and ruler of a renewed Christian Europe. According to some accounts, Charlemagne was surprised by the coronation and had not sought the title, though others suggest that he may have been complicit in the carefully orchestrated ceremony. The coronation had profound implications for both Charlemagne and the papacy. For Charlemagne, it elevated his status from king to emperor, granting him a level of authority and legitimacy unmatched by his contemporaries. He now claimed to be the successor of the Roman emperors, wielding both temporal and spiritual power over much of Western Christendom. This new title reinforced his role as a unifier of Europe and a champion of Christian values, lending divine sanction to his rule. For the papacy, crowning Charlemagne was a strategic move to assert its authority over secular rulers. By performing the coronation, Pope Leo III symbolically positioned the Church as the source of imperial legitimacy. This act established a precedent for future European rulers, reinforcing the idea that the Church held the ultimate power to grant and withdraw divine favor. However, this arrangement also sowed the seeds of future conflict, as tensions between emperors and popes over their respective roles would shape European politics for centuries. The creation of the Holy Roman Empire marked a turning point in European history. It provided a model of centralized authority in a fragmented continent, blending the legacy of the Roman Empire with the cultural and religious traditions of the Germanic peoples. Charlemagne's empire became a symbol of unity and order, inspiring future rulers to emulate his vision of governance. In practical terms, the title of emperor enabled Charlemagne to strengthen his control over his vast territories. It allowed him to negotiate with the Byzantine Empire, which still claimed to be the sole successor of Rome, and to assert his dominance over neighboring Christian kingdoms. It also underscored his role as a protector of the Church, reinforcing his alliance with the papacy and supporting his efforts to spread Christianity throughout Europe. Despite its grandeur, Charlemagne's coronation also exposed the fragility of his empire. The diversity of cultures, languages, and traditions within his realm posed ongoing challenges to unity. Charlemagne's ability to maintain control depended on his personal leadership and the loyalty of his vassals. After his death, the empire would struggle to remain cohesive, eventually fragmenting into separate kingdoms. Nevertheless, the coronation of Charlemagne as Holy Roman Emperor was a moment of immense significance. It reflected the aspirations of a medieval Europe striving for unity and order, while also laying the foundations for the political and religious dynamics that would shape the continent for centuries. For Charlemagne, it was the crowning achievement of a reign that blended ambition, faith, and vision into a legacy that continues to inspire. The Carolingian Renaissance, reviving learning and culture. Charlemagne's reign was not only defined by military conquests and governance, but also by a remarkable cultural revival known as the Carolingian Renaissance. This movement, which flourished under his leadership, aimed to restore the intellectual and artistic traditions of antiquity, while aligning them with Christian ideals. It marked a turning point in medieval Europe, preserving knowledge and fostering innovations that would shape the continent's cultural and intellectual trajectory for centuries. The seeds of the Carolingian Renaissance were sown by Charlemagne's deep appreciation for learning. Despite his limited formal education, Charlemagne recognized the importance of knowledge in strengthening his empire. He viewed education as essential for effective governance, religious understanding, and the unity of his diverse subjects. To achieve this vision, Charlemagne surrounded himself with scholars from across Europe, transforming his court at Aachen into a vibrant center of intellectual activity. One of the leading figures of this revival was Alcuin of York, an English scholar invited by Charlemagne to oversee educational reforms. Alcuin played a pivotal role in reorganizing the palace school, where members of the royal court and clergy were educated. Under his guidance, the school became a model for other institutions, emphasizing the study of grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. The classical liberal arts known as the trivium and quadrivium. Charlemagne also encouraged the establishment of schools and monasteries and cathedrals, ensuring that education extended beyond the royal court. These schools became centers for training clergy and administrators, equipping them with the skills needed to serve the empire. Latin, the language of the church and administration, was central to this curriculum, helping to standardize communication and record-keeping across Charlemagne's vast territories. The Carolingian Renaissance also sparked a revival in the production and preservation of manuscripts. Monasteries became hubs for copying texts, with scribes painstakingly reproducing religious and classical works. This effort not only preserved ancient knowledge, but also introduced innovations in writing, such as the development of Carolingian minuscule. This clear and legible script, characterized by uniform lettering and spacing, became the standard for medieval Europe and facilitated the dissemination of ideas. Art and architecture flourished during this period, reflecting the cultural ambitions of Charlemagne's reign. Inspired by Roman and Byzantine traditions, Carolingian artists created illuminated manuscripts, intricate metalwork, and sculptures that blended classical forms with Christian themes. intense desire to emulate the glory of Rome while expressing his devotion to God. The Palatine Chapel, with its octagonal design and richly adorned interior, remains a masterpiece of Carolingian architecture and a testament to the era's artistic achievements. Charlemagne's reforms extended to religious practices, promoting uniformity and orthodoxy throughout his empire. He standardized liturgical texts, ensuring that worship followed a consistent pattern across different regions. This effort reinforced the Church's authority and fostered a sense of shared identity among his subjects. The preservation of theological writings and the promotion of scholarly debate further solidified the intellectual foundations of medieval Christianity. While the Carolingian Renaissance primarily served the elite, members of the clergy and nobility, it had far-reaching effects on European culture. The preservation of classical texts during this period ensured that the knowledge of ancient Greece and Rome would survive to influence future generations. The emphasis on education and literacy created a legacy that would inspire later intellectual movements, including the 12th century Renaissance and the Italian Renaissance. Despite its achievements, the Carolingian Renaissance faced limitations. The resources required to sustain this cultural revival were immense, and its benefits were unevenly distributed. Most of the population remained illiterate and focused on subsistence farming, far removed from the intellectual pursuits of the court and monasteries. Nevertheless, the movement's impact on the higher echelons of society was profound, laying the groundwork for the cultural and intellectual development of Europe. Charlemagne's vision for a learned and unified Christian empire was central to the Carolingian Renaissance. By investing in education, preserving knowledge, and fostering artistic expression, he created a cultural legacy that outlasted his empire. Religion and politics. Partnering with the Church, Charlemagne's reign was deeply intertwined with the Church, creating a partnership that shaped the political and spiritual fabric of medieval Europe. His alliance with the papacy not only reinforced his authority as a ruler, but also advanced the Church's mission to spread Christianity across the continent. This relationship between secular power and religious leadership was one of mutual benefit, with Charlemagne using faith to unify his empire, while the Church gained protection and influence under his rule. From the outset of his reign, Charlemagne presented himself as a devout Christian ruler, committed to defending and expanding Christendom. This image was bolstered by his victories against pagan tribes such as the Saxons and Avars, where military conquest was closely tied to missionary efforts. For Charlemagne, the conversion of these groups to Christianity was not just a spiritual objective, but a means of securing political control. Shared faith created a sense of unity among his diverse subjects, strengthening the bonds of his empire. Charlemagne's partnership with the papacy was solidified through key events, particularly his intervention in Rome during the crisis faced by Pope Leo III. In 799, the Pope was attacked by political rivals and accused of corruption, forcing him to seek refuge with Charlemagne. The Frankish king escorted Leo back to Rome and presided over a synod that cleared the Pope of all charges. This act of protection demonstrated Charlemagne's role as a defender of the Church, enhancing his legitimacy as a ruler chosen by God. The culmination of this partnership came in 800, when Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne as Holy Roman Emperor. This coronation, held at St. Peter's Basilica, symbolized the unity of church and state, with Charlemagne portrayed as the earthly representative of divine authority. The title of emperor reinforced Charlemagne's role as a protector of Christendom and elevated the Frankish kingdom to a position of unmatched prestige in medieval Europe. Charlemagne's support for the church went beyond military and political alliances. He also played a pivotal role in shaping its internal organization and practices. He worked to standardize Christian worship across his empire, issuing decrees that ensured consistency in liturgical texts, rituals, and church governance. These reforms reflected his vision of a unified Christian state, where religion and politics worked hand in hand to maintain order and stability. One of Charlemagne's key contributions to the church was his promotion of education and literacy among the clergy. Recognizing that an educated clergy was essential for effective governance and religious instruction, he established schools in monasteries and cathedrals to train priests and administrators. These efforts improved the quality of church leadership and ensured that the clergy could fulfill their roles as spiritual guides and enforcers of royal policy. Charlemagne also supported the preservation of theological texts and encouraged scholarly debate on religious matters. His court at Aachen became a hub for intellectual activity, where scholars such as Alcuin of York worked to clarify and codify Christian doctrine. This intellectual revival not only strengthened the Church's theological foundations, but also reinforced its cultural and political influence within Charlemagne's empire. The alliance between Charlemagne and the Church was not without its complexities. While the partnership benefited both parties, it also created tensions over the balance of power. Charlemagne's role in appointing bishops and other church officials sometimes clashed with the Church's desire to maintain autonomy. These disputes foreshadowed the broader conflicts between secular rulers and the papacy that would characterize medieval European politics in later centuries. Despite these challenges, the partnership between Charlemagne and the Church left an enduring legacy. The integration of religion and politics under his rule became a model for future medieval kingdoms, where rulers often relied on the Church to legitimize their authority. At the same time, the Church's influence grew, as its alliance with Charlemagne provided the resources and protection needed to expand its reach across Europe. Charlemagne's vision of a unified Christian empire was rooted in the belief that faith could serve as a unifying force in a divided world. By partnering with the Church, he not only strengthened his rule, but also laid the foundations for the political and spiritual dynamics that would shape Europe for centuries. This partnership, with all its benefits and tensions, remains one of the defining features of Charlemagne's reign and his enduring legacy. The legacy of Charlemagne, foundations of modern Europe. Charlemagne's legacy extends far beyond the borders of the empire he ruled, leaving an indelible mark on the cultural, political, and religious fabric of Europe. Often referred to as the Father of Europe, Charlemagne laid the foundations for many of the institutions and traditions that would shape the continent for centuries. Through his efforts to unify diverse peoples, promote learning, and strengthen the Church, Charlemagne's influence can still be felt in the modern era. One of Charlemagne's most significant achievements was the unification of Western Europe under a centralized authority. By consolidating the Frankish kingdom and expanding it into an empire, Charlemagne provided a model of governance that emphasized both order and integration. His use of feudal relationships to manage his vast territories introduced a system that would dominate medieval Europe for centuries. While his empire fragmented after his death, the idea of a unified Christian Europe persisted, influencing the political ambitions of later rulers such as Otto the Great and the Habsburg emperors. Charlemagne's role in fostering the Carolingian Renaissance ensured the survival and revival of classical knowledge, which became a cornerstone of European intellectual development. His emphasis on education and the preservation of texts laid the groundwork for future cultural movements, including the 12th century Renaissance and the Italian Renaissance. The clear, standardized Carolingian minuscule script developed during his reign facilitated the dissemination of knowledge, making written works more accessible and comprehensible across different regions. The concept of the Holy Roman Empire, inaugurated with Charlemagne's coronation in 800, remained a powerful symbol of European unity and Christian authority for over 1,000 years. While the empire evolved and shifted in scope, the title of Holy Roman Emperor carried the weight of Charlemagne's legacy, representing the ideal of a ruler who combined secular and spiritual authority. The connection between the church and the state, cemented during Charlemagne's reign, shaped the political landscape of medieval Europe, influencing the relationships between monarchs and the papacy. Charlemagne's promotion of Christianity as a unifying force was another key aspect of his legacy. By spreading the faith through conquest, missionary work, and administrative reform, he transformed the religious map of Europe. Regions such as Saxony, once pagan strongholds, became integral parts of Christendom. This expansion of Christianity not only reinforced the Church's power, but also created a shared cultural and moral framework that helped bind Europe together during a period of fragmentation and conflict. The administrative innovations introduced by Charlemagne also left a lasting impact. His use of missi dominici to oversee local governance established a precedent for centralized oversight, while his emphasis on codifying laws provided a foundation for legal traditions in many European states. These reforms demonstrated the importance of effective administration in maintaining stability and order, lessons that would be drawn upon by future rulers. Despite his accomplishments, Charlemagne's legacy was not without challenges. After his death in 814, his empire was divided among his grandsons through the Treaty of Verdun in 843. This division marked the beginning of the end for the Carolingian Empire, as regional rivalries and external pressures eroded its unity. However, the division also gave rise to the distinct cultural and political identities of modern France, Germany, and Italy, reflecting Charlemagne's enduring influence on the European map. Charlemagne's symbolic legacy is as profound as his tangible achievements. He has been celebrated in art, literature, and popular imagination as an idealized ruler, a wise, just, and pious king, whose reign represented the golden age of medieval Europe. Medieval epics such as the Song of Roland immortalized his exploits, blending history and legend to create a figure larger than life. Even today, his name evokes the ambition and vision of a leader who sought to bring order and unity to a divided world. Modern European institutions have drawn inspiration from Charlemagne's legacy. The Charlemagne Prize, awarded annually in Aachen, recognizes individuals or organizations that contribute to European unity, reflecting his enduring role as a symbol of cooperation and integration. His reign is often cited as a precursor to the European Union, illustrating how his ideals of unity and shared identity resonate in contemporary efforts to foster peace and collaboration on the continent. The end of an era. Charlemagne's death and the fragmentation of his empire. Charlemagne's death on January 28, 814, marked the end of one of the most remarkable reigns in European history. At the time of his passing, the Carolingian Empire stretched from the Pyrenees in the west to the Elbe River in the east, and from the North Sea to central Italy. His empire symbolized unity and strength in a fragmented world, but its cohesion depended heavily on Charlemagne's personal leadership. After his death, the cracks in this vast and diverse realm began to widen, leading to its eventual fragmentation. Charlemagne's later years were marked by a sense of urgency to secure the future of his empire. In keeping with Frankish tradition, he prepared for the division of his realm among his sons. However, the premature deaths of his sons Charles the Younger and Pepin the Hunchback left only his third son, Louis the Pious, as his heir. In 813, Charlemagne crowned Louis as co-emperor, a clear signal of his intent to ensure a smooth transition of power. This act was also symbolic of Charlemagne's vision of continuity, blending the imperial legacy of Rome with the Christian values that defined his reign. When Charlemagne died at the age of 71, he was buried in his beloved city of Aachen within the Palatine Chapel that he had built as a testament to his faith and legacy. His death was mourned across his empire, as many recognized the magnitude of his achievements and the challenges his successors would face in maintaining the unity he had forged. Louis the Pious inherited an empire that was vast but fragile. Charlemagne's centralized administration relied on personal loyalty and a delicate balance of power among regional leaders. Louis, despite his piety and intentions to follow in his father's footsteps, struggled to manage the competing interests of his vassals, nobles, and his own family. His attempts to divide the empire among his sons according to Frankish customs led to bitter rivalries and conflict, undermining the unity Charlemagne had worked so hard to achieve. The most significant blow to the empire's cohesion came with the Treaty of Verdun in 843, signed nearly 3 decades after Charlemagne's death. This agreement divided the Carolingian Empire among Charlemagne's grandsons. Charles the Bald received the western portion, modern-day France. Louis the Sherman took the eastern territories, modern-day Germany, and Lothair the Pschers retained the central region, including Italy. While this division temporarily resolved disputes, it set the stage for the formation of distinct political and cultural identities in Europe, contributing to the emergence of modern nation-states. The fragmentation of Charlemagne's empire also exposed it to external threats. Viking raids devastated the northern territories, while Magyar incursions from the east and Muslim forces in the south further strained the weakened empire. Without the strong centralized leadership that Charlemagne had provided, the Carolingian rulers struggled to defend their lands, leading to a further decline in imperial authority. Despite the political disintegration of his empire, Charlemagne's legacy endured. His reign had established a cultural and intellectual foundation that continued to influence European society. The Carolingian Renaissance preserved classical knowledge and fostered a revival of learning, ensuring that the achievements of antiquity would not be lost. The administrative reforms he implemented provided a blueprint for governance that we would inspire future rulers, while his emphasis on Christian unity shaped the identity of medieval Europe. The title of Holy Roman Emperor, first bestowed on Charlemagne, remained a powerful symbol of authority and legitimacy. Although the Holy Roman Empire that emerged under Otto the Great in the 10th century was distinct from Charlemagne's realm, it drew heavily on his legacy, positioning itself as a continuation of his vision of a unified Christendom. Charlemagne's death marked the end of an era, but his influence transcended his lifetime. He was a ruler who not only expanded his territories, but also transformed the cultural, political, and religious landscape of Europe. The fragmentation of his empire after his death was a testament to the challenges of uniting such a diverse and vast region, but it also reflected the enduring impact of his achievements. Today, Charlemagne is remembered as a visionary leader whose reign laid the foundations for modern Europe. His efforts to promote unity, learning, and faith continue to inspire, reminding us of the power of leadership to shape history. While the empire he built ultimately fragmented, the ideals he championed endured, leaving a legacy that remains alive in the institutions and identities of Europe today.